Do you sometimes just wake up and want to shoot on a really large sensor? This is a 1/1.7 inch sensor called Starlight Eye, next to a Raspberry Pi HQ camera. Quite small. This is a full-frame sensor on Nikon D850 and many people would consider this is a big sensor. While I don't have Fuji GFX with me, you can imagine slightly bigger sensor than what is considered full-frame. Current digital medium format sensors somehow feel a bit smaller than some of us would like. Don't get me wrong, it is amazing what Fuji was able to accomplish and at that price, but I like my stuff big, I can't lie. So I was looking into something that will give me at least full size of the film area of 645 camera. Sensors like that existed in early digital ages. However, these days people mostly gave up and concentrated on making usable and affordable cameras. Not that this is a bad thing. What also existed in early 2000s and late 90s were scanner cameras. There were several companies manufacturing these, like Betterlight, Phase One, and even Leica. Phase One made multiple models. Some of them were even able to cover half a 4x5 inch frame. This one is a bit smaller and covers 6x6 centimeters. This back correctly emulates film size of 6x6. That is 56 by 56 millimeters of actual exposed film. Thanks to some luck and saved searches on eBay, I finally got one at a reasonable price. It was supposed to mount on all kinds of medium format cameras by using interchangeable plates. This example was destined for GX680 series of cameras by Fuji, but we can change it to anything we want simply by unscrewing the screws holding the mounting plate. My first idea was to try and mount it to Mamiya 645 that I have. But then I must remove the viewfinder in order for the back to fit properly. Also, I would lose full 6x6 frame, since 645, quite unsurprisingly, covers only 6 by 4.5 centimeters. So then, how am I going to use this thing? Well, with a few hours of CAD design and a little help of 3D printing, we have an adapter to mount Mamiya's lenses directly onto the sensor back. There is no mirror mechanism as we will focus using pre-scan. Only tricky part is the lens mount. There is no way to print that in one go, and even if I could, I wouldn't trust thin 3D plastic to hold heavy lenses. Easy way out of this is to reuse metal mount from old extension tubes. Those are amazing source for lens mounts if you like to make DUI cameras. Metal ring is held down by 6 screws, so we should be fine even with longer and heavier lenses. Funny, you can almost consider this as a camera body, and technically it totally is. Minimum viable camera body. Since we don't view our image through the lens before the shot, there is no point in using automated aperture stop down. We will just switch lens into manual mode, which stops it down immediately. What you see is what you get. If you've ever seen flatbed scanner, you probably know how is this contraption supposed to work. Entire picture is photographed line by line and then assembled in software. Although there is one important difference. Those who try to make scan camera out of an old scanner know what I'm talking about. Calibration is not performed the same way as in flatbed scanner. This right here will ruin your day when you disassemble the scanner, since firmware expects very specific response from CCD in order to work. If that fails, scanner goes to error mode and you cannot take a photo. Lucky for us, this sensor doesn't work that way, so we can just scan whatever is in front of it. If we look closely at the chip itself, you will find an old Sony CCD with only one array penned red, green and blue. Sadly, most of these scan cameras have very old sensors. Flatbed scanners eventually evolved to a multi-line sensors and a faster readout, like for example this chip from Epson. Some of them even have dedicated infrared scanning line for dust removal. Each blue, green and red line is being read at the same time, and since they are slightly offset, software will realign them to produce perfectly clean RGB image. This is all automatically handled, so it is not a big deal, but if something moves, results are hilarious. And people these days complain about 40 millisecond readout speed of mirrorless. This, in highest quality mode, will scan a photo for slightly under 3 minutes. You better not move anything. Big part of getting this to work is finding hardware and software combination that can still be usable with this back. This is a fully tethered camera back, which means there is no memory card slot or internal battery. Everything comes through this very thick SCSI cable, which is even used to transfer power. Then it goes to my PCMCA SCSI card, plugged in this old and well-beaten ThinkPad laptop. This tripod is amazing, but sometimes you just forget how tall it is. Only way this combo will work is 32-bit Windows XP. Took me a lot of reinstallations to realize that. Let's look at the interface. You have an option of executing much faster pre-scan to check what your picture will look like before committing to a full scan. Once pre-scan is over, you have to wait for the scanner to return back to the starting position before starting new scan. There are some things that you can set, but only very few will actually influence the camera. Like, for example, changing levels and curves will only affect the image after capture, so you might as well do it later in Photoshop. Most useful setting is changing ISO, which you can choose between 200 and 400. There are also indicators for under and overexposed parts of the image, which you should use, as this thing does not have a lot of dynamic range. Once you are sure that you want to capture your image, click on Capture Image and wait. Don't worry, I will not make you sit through this. Interesting about this camera is that there is no filtering of non-visible light whatsoever. This essentially makes it into a full spectrum camera. To use it normally, you need a filter that will block out infrared and ultraviolet parts of the spectrum, sometimes called hot mirror. Phase 1 originally delivered hot mirror filter with this back, but almost all of these are unusable, since material that they are made from degrades over time. I didn't even get one from the original seller. Fear not, I have a replacement filter, plus a few more, that will let us look what is this sensor really able to see. We will be using 200mm lens, since it is apochromatically corrected into a non-visible spectrum. At least that's what Mamiya says in their documentation. First up is image without any filters, which looks normal, but red channel is quite polluted by infrared light. Let's put hot mirror filter and check the differences. What if we wanted to see only infrared part? What did we lose by hot mirror filter? Even though this image looks like it is in color, realistically only red channel carries usable information. If we convert all channels to grayscale, you can easily see how it all looks like red, but noise gets bigger and bigger. Even though this filter lights in ultraviolet and infrared, it seems that we are registering almost no UV on this sensor. We can check this with another filter which passes only infrared. Now that we've seen what can be captured, let me quickly test some Mamiya lenses that I have. I know there is not much point in doing this, but I already made an adapter. I might as well show you something cool. They are not all designed to cover 6x6, but we can check what's usable. Obviously you can use any medium or large format lenses, but I have a bunch of these, so we will use them. First is an adapted lens, Zodiak 30mm fisheye, originally made for Pentagon 6 cameras. This natively covers 6x6, so as expected, this looks fine in the corners. Pretty good lens, and considering rarity and collector's price of Mamiya's own fisheye, I would say it is a good alternative. Sorry for the pictures of junk from my workshop. I would take it outside if I only could. Next up is the widest native lens that I have, 35mm. It is equivalent to 21mm in small format. It was pretty good when it was introduced in mid-70s. In modern times, it's a bit of a stretch to try and use it for more than 645 frame. Huge vignetting and blurry corners. I will continue to use this only on film. Sadly, I don't own 45mm, which brings us to a lens that I never liked too much. 55. This is the equivalent of 35mm on full frame. As you can see, quality is not that great. It came on the body when I bought the camera, and one day I will get around to selling it. 80mm f1.9 used to be fastest lens for medium format for a long while. Probably one of more desirable lenses to get when you have Mamiya. As you can see, the image quality is amazing. There are no problems in the corners, aside for maybe slightly increased vignetting. Now for something more exotic, this is 145mm SoftFocus lens. It has unique system of adding halos around your image by controlling the spherical aberrations. Once you stop it back to f8, it works as a short and very sharp telephoto. You can see it here at maximum and minimum softness setting, but also stop down. Phenomenal lens. This was the only one of its kind for Mamiya 645 system. One of the nicer Mamiya lenses that I have is 200mm. Works without problems, and it fills the entire 6x6 frame. As I mentioned, interesting thing about this lens is that it is corrected even into infrared range, meaning that you don't need to refocus when shooting infrared photos. 300mm is a lens that I use the least. Nothing wrong with this one, I just find that telelenses are much more usable on smaller cameras. They tend to be faster glass, and a lot of them have image stabilization. Having minimum focusing distance of 4 meters prevented me from shooting same target as the rest of the lenses, since I could not go further back to keep it in focus. Enjoy this photo of the street. These bright lines are actually cars. They spend only a line or two while moving, and that's how you see them. Let's have a quick peek what's inside and if we can see something interesting. Back plate appears to be attached on 8 screws, which we can easily remove, and plate just slides off. We can see the stepper motor on the bottom, plus switches for SCSI settings. There seems to be another PCB on the back. I don't see an easy way to remove this central rail and keep the sensor aligned when putting it back. So this will be it for now. So in the end, what I'm going to do with this thing? Considering all these drawbacks, honestly, there isn't much what I can do. I will probably use it to test coverage of medium format lenses, as I don't have anything with sensor as large as this. I have some plans to build medium format camera, and I would prefer not to waste film as much as possible, especially considering even more rising prices in 2025. This bag will come in handy for testing. Other than that, I had plans to construct scan camera of my own, and it was interesting to see how the professionals did it 2.5 decades before me. Let me know in the comments if maybe you would like to see that. Also, big shout out to Phase 1 support for helping me to find proper driver disc for this thing. That is some support, you people are legends. I hope this video was, well, if nothing else, entertaining for some of you.